invite your leaders to consider the cost of not educating, preparing, and helping the people to learn. There is this rhetoric joke cartoon about what happens if we train and they leave, okay? And the other person in the cartoon says, what happens if we don't train and they stay, okay? So the core of the technical and human skills needs to be the driver of revenue. When they understand that, they never see learning and development investment as a cost or a waste. They never see the time invested in learning experiences as a waste. They see it as a strategic investment.
Welcome to the LearnOps Leadership Series. Today I have the pleasure of interviewing a close friend of mine, Fernando Sanchez-Arias, who's been a Chief People Officer in numerous companies. He's been the head of diversity and inclusion, learning and innovation. He has extensive experience with business and human capital leadership in organizational culture, learning and talent development, organizational change and design, as well as corporate strategic relations. Currently, he's the Chief People Officer at the Click Institute, which is a very exciting initiative, and former HR Director of Learning and Development at the Home Depot and Chief People Officer of Global Custom Commerce. Welcome, Fernando.
Thank you, Ryan. Thank you for having me.
One of the most exciting parts of when I get to interview people like you, Fernando, is just learning about your story and your background. How did you even get started? And being a close friend, I know your story. It's an amazing story. You've helped people all over the world and have worn L&D hats in many countries. But how did you get started?
Yeah. So my background is in business administration with a major in organizational methods. So when I was in college, I started my own company. I was an entrepreneur, and that company was serving petrochemical companies and other oil and gas related industries in the study of time and movement, how to optimize the way they were actually moving people and objects in a factory, and also documenting technical training manuals so the people can be trained in Japanese companies, in French companies, with partners in the petrochemical and oil and gas industry in Venezuela. When I was in college, I joined an organization that was founded in the United States, but it's truly international. The name is Junior Chamber International, JCI. And it was a factory of young leaders. It was an organization, actually it's still active. And this organization triggered my passion for learning. I got into that thanks to a professor at college that told me, why don't you get some electives with me? And then you join me in this organization. There is a training on project management, and you might be interested. So I was in love with the type of methodology they were using. At that time, we were not in the digital area. Everything was in person. And I was captured by the depth and the quality of the program. Then I started to join the organization, and the organization had three paths. One was project management of any type of projects in the community development, in international relationships and business, the individual development, people who just wanted to be better, and of course, the business, how to exchange and do trade. I chose the individual development and the international area. So I started to travel the world. I have been in more than 80 countries, and I learned a lot from different approaches to business and to leadership. But the most valued thing is that I was in touch with great learners and great facilitators who shape my way to approach learning and development and talent development. When I was working in oil and gas, one of my customers invited me to join the team in the management team. So I kept my private practice my consulting practice with a team that was growing. And then I continued my work with my customers, but at the same time being part of a management team. And the work at that time was bringing from Lufkin, Texas, very close to where I live right now here in Houston, the methodology for quality management system to the 11 facilities and service centers in a manufacturing, oil and gas, and artificial lifting company that I was now not only a vendor, a solution provider, but a member of the team. And that dual team allowed me to see learning and development from the vendor, solution provider perspective, being an entrepreneur, but at the same time being an intrapreneur as a member of the management team of an oil and gas manufacturing company. That lasted for an immense amount of years, more than 15 years. And then they transferred me to United States. Before that, I was living in Belgium in charge of the Kuala Lumpur office that I created for the Asia Pacific region. So I was living in Europe, working in Asia, and also going back to Venezuela monthly. Then I was relocated to Houston. I was very blessed to live the dynamic of manufacturing in the best years and then in the crisis of the energy sector. I got a great offer thanks to you. You opened the door. I started to be supporting Synapse because I was fascinated by your team and by your leadership. And then you opened me the door with Home Depot, and I got an offer to be the chief people officer of one division that was a company acquired by Home Depot, Global Custom Commerce. And that was a blessing for me. Those were one of the best 3 years that I had in my career, learning from the C-level team, learning from Jay Steinfeld, who was the founder and then the CEO of the company for many years after Home Depot acquired it. And then I moved to Click Institute, that is a think tank based in Washington, D.C., with 33 countries affiliated and more than 200 active members who are shaping the intersection of learning with innovation and inclusion to be able to produce better results. So in this dynamic, the center has been learning and development. No matter my roles, I have been really driven by the talent development and the talent strategy.
It's a great story, and such diverse skill set in a number of different roles. I mean, being in talent development for the last 20 years, and then even going through COVID, and now in this, not post-COVID, because it's still, we still have COVID here with us today, unfortunately, and it will probably be here forever. But a lot of teams are now going through digital transformation, looking at new ways of working. What are some of the biggest changes that you've noticed in the industry yourself over the last few years?
I remember when I was at Home Depot, our CEO was always encouraging us to test during the week 1 or 2 days working from home to be able to ensure that the quality of the systems was similar to the moments when we were at the office. And he was thinking, what is the best way to do it? At that time, some of us were using WebEx, some of us were using Slack, and we were communicating without being actually on cameras, being live, being seen. But that was a start of an awareness that we need to be actually hybrid. Okay? So when I started to be in contact with the different communities of, at that time, HR or people strategy, or human strategy or human capital management, we started to see the migration to the digital component. Okay. So, yes, everything is good in person, but the systems, the HRIS, the softwares and platforms that we use to administer, to manage the people function needed to be more digital and needed to be more friendly. Okay. Because the most of the HRIS were really, really robust, but extremely bad in user friendliness. Okay, so we needed to give to the function from talent acquisition to outplacement and retirement the possibility to have an associate journey that was really hybrid, that I could do it digitally or I could do it physically in person. And that was the migration. In the middle of COVID, as everybody, we were shocked. Okay? So we experienced from a 20% more or less of digital video via video conferences or some video calls that were more or less in the 10, 15, 20% of our time, we were shift to 80% or 90% of digital environment, virtual and cyber dynamic. And that was, for many of us, a huge challenge. I am a socioculturalist, so I learned through the interaction with people. Okay, so social processes are the drivers of my learning and my thinking. So it was very difficult to be in a digital space where I was really unable to connect physically and face to face. So I needed to learn how to facilitate digitally, how to organize digital events. And we took it in the very aggressive way, a Click Institute. We said, we're going to learn while we help others to learn what we need to learn. So instead of being ready, we, as a good design thinker, we started to do a good MVP. And then we said, we're learning together. Let's do a digital facilitation program that not only was helping the people to facilitate, but also to design and manage. So it was actually an operational component of how I actually lead the process in the 7Ds of digital thinking, expanding the 5Ds original design thinking process to design and implement and measure. So that was the change. The change was we're more or less okay with some digital component, and then we were actually violated by an accelerated digital transformation.
So that's really interesting as well, and we've seen that a lot too. And we've also seen a lot of mergers of companies or departments to streamline certain operations even further as well. And you went through that with Global Custom Commerce, formerly known as Blinds.com, and Home Depot as well, which at a really interesting time. And I think one of the reasons on your partnership there was to really bring in that L&D strategic thinking to support business strategy and performance. Is that right?
Yes, I was hired, as Jay said, as the co-pilot. And my real contribution was not in HR per se. My real strength was in learning and development. So I was okay with the knowledge of the basic elements of the function, but not only my passion, but also my expertise and experience is and will be in the systemic connection between the business drivers and the business bottom line numbers and the people learning and development to be able to generate revenue. So that connection was the one. So at that time, we didn't have a proper learning center. So we founded ILIAD, the Institute for Leadership, Innovation and Advanced Development, ILIAD. And it was co-founded by Jay and myself. We co-created. He has the the need and the drive and the idea. He started to conceptualize it. Then he shared it with me and the team, and we together did it. Iliad had a structure by itself. It was a sort of an exploration innovation unit inside of the organization with a separate budget, and it was really driven by a team of very advanced and smart people that were coming mostly from the organization. So we were hunting very good hearts and heads to be able to put their hands into this. What we did was we partnered with Synapse. For at that time, Synapse helped us to integrate the process between subject matter experts and the learners with the platform. We also partnered with Linked Learning. So we started to create learning paths that were not only in the technical component of their jobs, but also in any area where they wanted to flourish and learn and be better. And we also partnered with Degree to actually internally certify skills and expertise and abilities that were needed to actually support the job and serve our customers. So in that transition, we started to have a different perspective of learning by the main leaders in the company, starting from the CEO and the C-suite. All of them, the chief financial officer and current CEO of the division, Steve and other team members, were actually part of the facilitators program, a learning facilitators program, all of them. So every single director, senior director, and vice president of the company were also a facilitator, a learning facilitator. And the administration and management of the function was strategic. So every single business unit had a partner in learning, not only a partner in HR. So we were actually embedded into the business unit, helping the business units with normal traditional technical training, customer training, and of course, the human side of the business, the human skill.
How did you define priorities, especially having, the most senior executives being part of facilitation with that level of buy-in? Was programs developed around business strategy, performance initiatives, being a new business unit of its own and separate? How would you prioritize these initiatives?
Yeah, it was interesting because we were so blessed to have HDU, Home Depot University, that was at that time mainly an in-person corporate university, but with a very robust learning technology support with distance learning and remote learning that was designed initially to support the store's learning and the store's technical training, but also the corporate function in different phases of the onboarding process, compliance, and other areas. Were very good design. Some of them a little bit traditional, a lot of them very advanced. So it was a great combination. So we had that support. But internally, Global Custom Commerce was a sort of an innovation center. It was an interconnected retail hub. So there was a lot of innovation in one division. There was a lot of exploitation of the core business in another. So Jay used to lead the company in two arms in an ambidextrous way. Exploitation of the core business to refine it with a lean mindset, very focused on revenue generation and high customer service, high quality of service to our customers, high customer experience, and at the same time, allowing the exploration unit to flourish into innovation and think ahead and challenge the status quo. So in that area, we needed to serve both. And the team led by Marcia Porcher in the Iliad, who was our sort of a chief learning officer supporting our team, was actually defining priorities based on, first, of course, what is really helping our customers. So customer experience was the center. The second was financial health, organizational health. What is creating revenue, how we can actually reduce time, increase productivity, increase effectiveness, increase quality of service. Those were mainly the second driver. And the third driver was actually how we can actually make our people happier and more meaning, finding more meaning and being enjoying and comfortable and emotionally safe in what they were doing. So one is how I serve better my customer. Any learning initiative that was linked to it was a priority. How I generate revenue, okay, to provide sustainability to the organization, and how I make my people to feel good, generating revenue and serving our customers. So those three were the criteria we were using. And that helped us to be clear. I am serving my customer. I am improving the customer experience. Second, I am impacting the bottom line. I am helping my organization to be more profitable and sustainable. Third, I am enjoying doing what I'm doing. I am having fun. It's like Jay used to say, enjoying the ride. So I'm having fun in this ride. Okay, that was critical, and those were three of the other, among other criteria that we were using, that helped us to know what should be done and what should not be done.
So were those values for the learning organization that you set up, or were they tied to also the business value?
When I got into the division, um, the division was migrating from 4 values, okay, to 12 values, adding 8 values of Home Depot. So when it was acquired, one of the drivers of the acquisition was not only the technology and the client, the customer portfolio, but the people and the culture of global custom commerce. So how things were done in the company, how we were working and living, was a driver for the value of the company. So everything we were doing needed to be linked to the 4 values of the company, the 4 core values of the division, but it started to also be connected with the other 8 values of the corporation. So we were having 12 values, and those 12 values were strictly linked to the way we were designing and planning, and pilot testing and refining the offerings and the solutions in learning and development, and also implementing them, measuring them, and improving them. We were also asking, are we actually really uh, being able to uh, allow the people to speak in our learning and experiences? Are they having fun? Are they actually really creating impact? So we were involving the values not only to demonstrating them inside of the organization, but also to be able to use them as evaluation criteria.
And you talked about the role of business partners and how you had partnerships, not just HR partners, but like real business partners to collaborate with. Given your experience on setting that up successfully, do you have any advice to the audience on practical ways that L&D can better leverage business partnerships?
Definitely. Um, from Click Institute, we're helping, among other partners in the think tank, one French company that is in the oil and gas manufacturing space, that manufactures reciprocal pumps. 90 years old company, extremely successful. And we're also helping a German company. Actually, at my background, there are some of the products of this German company. And we are advising them in learning and development strategy, and in talent strategy, and in culture. So we link the philosophical, ideological component of the culture with the strategic execution domains of the business. I do believe that first, leaders has to be the advocates of learning. And this might be inspired. It might be inspired. It is always easier when you have leaders that do not need to be convinced. I'm fortunate to work with the CEO of Bartek US Corporation for the Americas, Stefan Schaffer. And Stefan is a people-centric leader. He's a servant leader by nature. He understands the value of people and culture. I don't have to convince him. Okay. I'm working with Mario Martignoni, the CEO of PCM, the other company. They are based on learning as the center of the business strategy. They have an amazing learning center in Champs-Élysées in France, where they bring people from all over the world. They have a very robust online learning. So my advice is first, invite your leaders to consider the cost of not educating, preparing, and helping the people to learn. There is this rhetoric joke cartoon about what happens if we train and they leave, okay? And the other person in the cartoon says, what happens if we don't train and they stay, okay? So the core of the technical and human skills needs to be the driver of revenue. When they understand that, they never see learning and development investment as a cost or a waste. They never see the time invested in learning experiences as a waste. They see it as a strategic investment. It is difficult to work with certain business leaders from some areas that do not see the value of talent development initiatives or experiences. I think the best way to do it is to connect in two perspectives. One is value, okay? What is the value you, as a business leader, are getting out of that person's exposed to this online, digital, hybrid, or in-person learning experience, whether it's technical or is human-driven in terms of skills and expertise, right? And skills and abilities. So that's value. The second one is impact. What are the results? Okay. Is that person delivering better results or not after she or he was exposed to the learning experience or solution? However it was this in any methodology or modality or media. If we talk in these two, if we focus in these two, it is really important that we actually become advisors and not salespeople. If we start selling the function, we lose credibility. But if we advise them speaking about their businesses, their functions, and their challenges, then we are their partners. We're not in front of them, we're besides them. Okay? Another strategy, Ryan, that I suggest to consider to our viewers is to always involve the CEO and the C-suite in the work as a faculty member. And if they're very busy, you can do a crash course on how to present and how to be a good deliverer or conveyor of messages, right? As a strategic speaker or representative of the company. And involve them in everything you do as co-creators. So for instance, let me give you a very practical example. Everything we did in Bartek US was driven by the CEO and by the core functional managers. I was at the shadow, okay? I was preparing them so they could take the protagonist and main role. Same in the French company. We partner with the chief financial officer, the two vice president leaders of the food and beverage and the oil and gas industry, the IT leader and the core administrative leader, and they were co-authors of the program of change management initiative that we developed with them across the world, and that we're still actually developing them. Now we're going to the phase of developing the managers that will be leaders of the sessions across the world. So, and the first one in being the speaker was the CEO. The chief financial officer was also the chief marketing officers, and the leaders were there as key activists and key advocates and a key awareness generators of the program. So don't think that you can work in a silo. You have to be involved in the business, and the business is the core of your design. Their teams and their team members and the customers they serve have to be the focus of your design thinking process.
That makes sense. So you talked about impact as well, and very practical, by the way, on the strategies that you shared as a suggestion, which I totally agree with as well. A lot of people are trying to demonstrate impact right now with data as well, right? They want to validate budgets, validate certain learning inventions, and tell the story. To have access to data to help support the story that they need to tell to show those improvements. Throughout your career, were you more focused on the strategy and execution side, or did you also put operational mechanisms in place for data capture so that you could show the reports or show some of the budget that was invested to achieve certain business outcomes? Why do you think L&D struggles to gather data, or that there's a lack of data for L&D versus other business departments? And in your opinion, what data or insights should even be focused on?
Yeah, that's a very important question. I am not coming from a people analytics background. I was fortunate to work with a brilliant team member who was reporting to me when I was at the Home Depot, and now migrated to, well, he then migrated to the corporation, the headquarters in Atlanta, and then was recently hired as a people analytics a manager for a large organization globally. Um, and he taught me. I learned a lot from him of how you could actually use people analytics and the data behind the learning to actually connect with the business results, whether correlate or connecting, not correlating, connecting the investment with the impact in terms of sales, for instance, when we were connecting the way you were training and coaching a sales representative in the call center with the results they were acquiring, we could able to see the investment in time and money of the learning exposure in the academy that is lived before you go on the phone to be fully ready to deal with customers, and also the coaching hours that these representatives were constantly receiving. So there was a huge challenge in finding. The most of the time was done manually with Excel, very good macros that he developed. The most of the HRIS focus on other functions in terms of data. So the components of data analytics behind the learning function is robust in the organization that has a huge investment. Actually, Home Depot had a great platform at the HDU, Home Depot University, with the learning and development function to actually see and start to connect completion, amount of hours into impact and improvement of results. Okay, and also connecting with the investment of those initiatives. In the division where we were just starting. We were just starting to connect time and completion with impact in terms of what they were doing in linking learning. Each of them had their account. We were able to administer the data that were coming from that. What was the engagement time? What was the results after they were actually doing reported by the supervisors? But it was a lack of a system that could allow us to do that. Okay? I am now more, thanks to Ian McLennan, who was actually that manager, who helped me to understand the power of people analytics. I am now more into the mindset of what is the data behind this. What is the real problem? What is the reflective problem solving? What is the data I can use to be asking my why, and after that the 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 why, so I can get to the data. And what is the system that can help me to actually do that? In another project with another organization that we serve in the retail area, we were looking for an HRIS that was actually helping us to be able to connect data of learning and training with the other elements and components of data in the human capital system. And it was very difficult to find full providers of HRIS who could do that. Workday is one of them. When we started to assess Workday, was allowing us to migrate data from learning and development into what was performance and connected with the impact in the business. Okay? Some huge ERPs are also doing that. So I do believe that more and more we will be using data analytics and data science to inform our decision-making process so we can have a better execution. We were analyzing something that is not talent development related, but Ian brought to me a case that I think we can cut our interviews from this amount, was around 7 interviews that we were conducting, up to 4, okay? Because when I did the analysis, the interviews, these type of interviews were not actually helping the attraction and final recruitment of people who were actually retained for 3 years. We would never be going to be able to make a very informed decision of reducing number of interviews to expedite and make the process seamless and frictionless for the candidate and improve the candidate experience, correlating that or linking that with retention.
Yeah.
So the quality of hire.
That's a different level.
That was something that I was. Yeah. So, and that was done by Ian, and that gave us a lesson of the power of data science and also people analytics to inform the business leaders and the chief operational and the chief financial, and of course the people officer, to actually entertain the better decisions and execute the right actions.
Now that makes a lot of sense, and I've learned a lot about data science recently, and it really is mathematical to solve the problems. That's an area we're investing in a lot, and we just hired a director of data science to help our customers understand operational insights at a different level that hasn't been uncovered before. So I totally appreciate that, and I would love to meet Ian at one point.
Yeah. In fact, we're inviting him to be one of the advisors of Click Institute in the business and strategic steering committee, where you are going to be also fully invited, and you have already been formally invited. When we started to launch this team, is to have this insight from different perspectives.
Very exciting. So my last question, Fernando, and this has been great, and I want to be respectful of time as well. You're part of Click Institute. There's so many learning professionals who are part of this institute, focused around innovation, inclusion, learning. What are some of the things that you are seeing at this global level on where focus areas are to advance the learning function? Are you seeing any trends?
Yeah, definitely. One of the things that I'm seeing more and more, and I am in the middle of the space. I am serving people's needs in the team at Click Institute. At the same time, I am fortunate and blessed to have the dynamic of the organizations who partner with a Click Institute to solve specific problems or embrace specific opportunities. And as design thinkers, we always empathize. So we go to what the customer, what the end user, what the person that is actually experiencing the most complex dynamic is thinking, is feeling, sensing. So what I see in this center is that the huge duality of the hybrid dynamic. I think more and more we need to be aware that we will never come back to face, in person, physical dynamic. And that we will never also go to what we lived in the 2020 of fully digital, isolated dynamic. We will go to a combined hybrid dynamic. In that dynamic, that is being very rhetorical now. Everybody talks about the hybrid. Everybody talks about the great resignation and all these things that are there. I think it's very basic. The talent development leader, whether it's a manager of the function or a designer and deliverer of the content, whether it's a curator of content that others produce and just offer that, will be in the huge challenge of appealing to audiences that are digital with a high preference of remote and cyber dynamics and spaces, that will be in person, face to face, with the touch of the experience, and those who are very flexible and agile to be in the hybrid. So this dynamic is, I believe, the biggest challenge, and the trend is that the people will be designing better and better solutions, whether it's technological or in terms of physical dynamic or methods or approaches, to actually have hybrid spaces of work and living. The second one is high level of people analytics and data science, as we were discussing. More and more, the learning and development has to be a savvy, understanding professional of data science. And that it doesn't have to be a mathematician, it doesn't have to be an statistician, it doesn't have to be an expert in the engineering component of the processes, but has to be able to understand and tell the story. Okay. And the third one is it has to be a person who is focused on results. Okay. At the end of the day, the people in our companies inside and in our networks, the partners that we work with, they are looking for better results. And in these three trends, the whole center is the customer. If we are, at the end of the day, helping and assisting the customers, then we are, without any doubt, be aiming to the center of the business. That is actually the driver of revenue. Sometimes we tend to focus in the process and we forget the people. Okay. In the same perspective, when we're doing our work inside of the company, we tend to serve our internal customer only, and we forget about the end users, right? So that has to be something that we have to consider. If we draw a model, will be the customer, and inside three main drivers, which is the digitalization, the hybrid component. The other one will be people analytics and data science, and of course, results-oriented design.
Very interesting. We could talk about this all day. So, if anybody has any questions, feel free to reach out to Fernando or myself. We're here to inspire, educate, and help people learn more about learning operations on how to take the L&D function to their highest potential. Fernando, thank you so much for being a guest on the LearnOps Leadership Series. It's been a great pleasure, and I look forward to many more discussions that we'll have over the future years of our friendship.
The pleasure was also mine, and I thank all the viewers to be with us. Thank you, Ryan, for allowing me to have this pleasure to share I will say, our challenges, learning every day to be able to cope with the new realities that will never, never be the same. So we always call it the new never-ending reality. So it's gonna be changing every day, and we have to be humble to learn and also courageous to change.
Thanks for watching the LearnOps Leadership Series. For more episodes like this, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And visit us at Cognota.com. That's COGNOTA.com.